Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the local custodians of land in which we meet this afternoon and honour elders past, present and emerging. I'm Melissa Wilkinson. I sit in the education team on the Central Coast. Thank you for being here today with us. It's an important topic and something that it's been very popular as well. So looking forward to this session. Just a bit of housekeeping. We will have Q&As at the end of the session. So if you want to pop your questions that you have into the questions box, now's the time to do that, and during the session as well. Also, we are being recorded. You will be able to access this in the Education Library after the session in the next 24 hours approximately. And the poll will pop up at the end. So please complete the poll. That's where we get our data from to look and plan for further events in the future. So please, I encourage you to do that as well. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce Morag Joseph from the LHD. She's here with us today. She's the Program Manager for the Diabetes Alliance for the Hunter New England LHD. And Deborah Wagowski, welcome to you as well. She's our Primary Improvement Officer with the PHN. And I'm going to hand over now to Deb. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks very much, Mel, and welcome, Morag. So I'll get straight into it. This is about quality improvement in diabetes. Morag's the program manager at the Diabetes Alliance, and I'm at the PHN. So just three things we wanted to cover today. De-identified data. How do I get rid of this? Hold on a sec. There we go, that's a bit better. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So de-identified data sources. So the Diabetes Alliance program report and the PHN report, quality improvement activities. So primary care support offered by the PHN. And I've just put a little screenshot there of the website where you can find our tiles on primary care support. Some quality improvement science, plan, do, study, act cycles. Some technology, CAT4, how to re-identify patients from the previous de-identified reports, and just some clinical information system navigation, use of the diabetes register and the diabetes record and cycle of care.
Deb, are you able to flick through the slides, please?
There we go, yeah. It's sensitive, isn't it? So Morag, this is about the Alliance, if you wouldn't mind.
For some reason, okay, so thanks for having me, everyone. Lovely to see you all online today. I just wanted to let you know that the Diabetes Alliance program is really looking forward to supporting you in general practice with quality improvement by providing a case conferencing model of care which supports quality improvement with data extraction and a data report. The Alliance program is the Hunter New England Local Health District and the Primary Health Network partnering with general practice and Aboriginal Medical Service, case conferencing with the team, with quality improvement, looking at health professional transfer of knowledge. We're looking at continuity of care with your patients and most importantly, really good patient outcomes, which we've shown over the 7 years we've been doing the program. Chronic disease management, providing really good support for your nurses and partnering with our diabetes educators and the GPs with the endocrinologists, and looking at close integration between primary and tertiary sectors. Thanks, Deb. We provide a specific data report which is built from your clinical information system. This data report looks similar to the generic data report that the PHN provides you on generic chronic disease, but this is diabetes specific. This is pulled from your PEN CS CAT4 system, and obviously, and many times the PCIOs and team members that go into your practice talk to you about the data is only as good as what's inputted at your end, and that information is pushed into a data report which Deb's going to talk to you a bit further as we go through this mastermind today. This report is discussed and interpreted by the endocrinologist and diabetes educator during the lunchtime session of the Diabetes Alliance case conferencing day. And we apply that to quality improvement activities, which we'll have a quick look at just now. So some of the agreed, pardon, Deb, you're right.
I'm just wondering if that's still sharing.
No, it's not, Deb. I might take it off you. Sorry, everybody. I'll just give you a couple of seconds. I'll just change it to Morag and then I'll change it back to you so we can get those slides up. Might be 1 second. Okay, Deb. There we go. So you'll have a little screen. Yep.
Okay. Continue, everyone. Yep.
Is that going?
So the agreed clinical practice improvement is discussed with the endocrinologist on the lunchtime session, and these relate to the Gpmp. So some of the things that might be discussed is to improve screening for type 2 diabetes, and we try to relate the quality improvement activity to the Gpmp. And this is reviewed at the 6-month visit. Thanks, Deb. Over to you.
Is that showing you guys?
No, it's not coming up. You just need to bring up the PowerPoint on the screen. I'll take it off you again and I'll, sorry, that won't be a moment, everyone. I'll just be 1 second. I'll send it to you again. Deb's just having a slight technical issue, but she's working on it, and any delay, all the slides will be sent after this as well and will be available also in the education library for you as well. So Deb, you'll be able to see the show your screen on your screen right now with the little box. Just click on that and pop your PowerPoint up.
Yep, did that work? Is that working?
No, I'm not sure. We might just keep moving forward then with the presentation, and yeah, that would be great, Morag. I'll just put it to Morag for a second. But like I said, this will be available in the education library. Slight tech issue up in Tamworth. We're in all different parts of the territory at the moment. So Morag's now going to bring it up, and I will be sending these out to everybody after the presentation, and it'll also be available in the education library as well. Won't be 1 moment. And just a reminder to everyone to please pop your input into the poll at the end of the session. That's where we get our data from for the survey as well for future sessions that are coming up. So Morag, we can see your calendar now. If you just want to pop up the PowerPoint down the bottom. We did have a practice run, everybody, and it went beautifully, but this is technology, I guess, especially when we're working across the patch. So back over to you, Morag. Thanks. And Deb.
Okay, so this is the Primary Health Network General Practice Summary. So it's crunched from Cat4 data. It's de-identified, and it comes from the coding that's in your practice clinical information system. You can get this from your primary care improvement officer, and it's really helpful to work some quality improvement activities with baseline and then review of data. So what we've done is built 4 quarters of quality improvement activities around diabetes. So the first one's about patients that are indicated but not coded. The second quarter could be about chronic disease management. The third quarter could be about using the diabetes register in your system. And the fourth quarter would be about diabetes cycle of care completion. And that could fill a 12-month year, which is really useful for accreditation and quality improvement PIP purposes. There is a Plan, Do, Study, Act process of improvement science where you would utilize the data as your baseline. And then after you'd done a cycle, you could review the data in one of those lovely reports and see how your improvement went. So for the diabetes cycle of care, this is really taken from the RACGP and Diabetes Australia management of type 2 diabetes in general practice, and that informs the MBS annual cycle of care items. You can see that box there. There's about 14 items. This does remain best practice, even though the service incentive payment for the diabetes cycle of care incentive is ceased. It was replaced by the Gpmp. So the clinical best practice remains. So this is the report from the Diabetes Alliance program, and you can see that it talks about 7 of the 13 items, and it gives you a breakdown over the years as you review patients. Also, we've got just a couple of graphs there that compare the Gpmp measures against Australia. So you can see Australia's in the grey, your practice would be in blue, and the other PHN practices are in green. So it can indicate a benchmark of how you're performing. I've just circled a little thing there about the foot and the eye checks, and you note that it's a very low reporting figure, and one of our ideas for quality improvement is to actually code the foot and the eye checks as the correspondence arrives in the practice. So this is the CAT4 module that you'll have in your practice from the PHN funded license. This one talks about the items of the cycle of care that are completed per patient, and we recommend starting at the right-hand side of the graph. You can see that there's 24 patients there that have 11 of the items completed, so it's easier to start at that end and actually complete cycles that are nearing completion, rather than starting at the left where you would be starting with item number 1. So that's an easy way to convert to completion. This CAT4 report talks about the strengths and opportunities within the practice. So you can see this practice is really great about recording smoking. However, as we discussed, not so great about recording the foot or the eye exam. So this is the data mapping in CAT4 that maps to your entries in your practice system. And there's a couple of different places there: observations field, the diabetes cycle of care field, the smoking field, and the medication review field. So some of the ideas that we'd recommend out of the data reports are to look at ethnicity. So that's super important as diabetes is overrepresented in First Nations populations. And screening is important via the OSRISC cycle and also the 715 health assessments. But you can also see in your, Morag, you can also see in your normal report that ethnicity across the generic report may not be identified in this particular practice, 157 patients. And that just means that the 715 health assessment is probably not going to be attended, which is where we screen for disease. So ethnicity is very important to record. This idea is about smoking, recording of status. There are some patients whose smoking status is not recorded. So that's in the diabetes report. You can see that there. Also in the generic report from our PHN, you can see that this practice has over 1,100 persons without smoking recorded. And then you can see across Australia the comparison there. And while it seems on par, there's still 25 to 30% not recorded. So BMI is similar. In the diabetes report, there is a portion that have not recorded a height and a weight, and also obviously some high rates of overweight, obesity, or morbid obesity. But in the PHN practice report, you could choose to work on recording of BMI across your entire practice. You can see there's probably, I think that says 1,800 missing. And across Australia, you can see that there's still missing BMI. So this is about waist circumference, which is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. And you can see that about half of patients with diabetes haven't had a waist circumference recorded over the 2 years as well. So that's an opportunity that you might like to think about for quality improvement. Yes, I was just going to say the whole practice team can work on that, whether that's an Aboriginal health worker, a practice nurse, or a medical practice assistant. That can be done during SNAP assessments or the health assessments. Thanks, Mara. So this one is about pathology. So the HbA1c should drop in automatically and be coded so that it's read easily by Cat4 and then transposed into the Alliance report. There are still some patients that haven't had an HbA1c recorded, and then certainly there are a lot that are not at target. And you can see across Australia, there's still 25 to 30% missing. So one of the ideas is maybe not to provide scripts longer than 3 months until a patient attends an HbA1c. That could be motivating to get that recorded. So blood pressure recording, often this is because the BP is recorded in the progress notes rather than in the observations field. So that's just a little hot tip on how to improve that, but certainly there's a large cohort there in red that their blood pressure is above 140/90 hypertensive. And also across Australia, you can see that there's still 30% missing. And cholesterol as well with the vascular disease, important to get that cholesterol result in the record. And that's helpful also for cardiovascular risk assessment as one of the required items to have recorded. This one's quite important. This is about the MBS items for chronic disease management. So a patient that has diabetes could, have a 721 management plan, a 723 team care arrangement, a 732 review of both of those items a couple times a year. But also there could be nurse or Aboriginal health worker monitoring in between more structured reviews with the 10997 and the 10987 for First Nations persons that have 715 in place. So doing the work of diabetes cycle of care, using the chronic disease items is a good way of ensuring the business continuity. And also don't forget the diabetes cycle of care items are still in existence. These are timed items. I had a nurse this week, the practice was considering using the 2525, the 40-minute assessment to complete the medication review of the cycle of care, which could be quite lengthy. So that was quite good thinking. This is quite important. Again, this is about patients that are indicated to have diabetes, but their disease is not coded in their record in the practice. So coding is required by eHealth standards and accreditation standards. And often the disease diagnosis is free typed rather than chosen from the diagnosis list. And so the diagnosis list is populated with acceptable national medical vocabulary, for example, in medical director and best practice. So it is required to actually choose from the list rather than free type. So for this particular practice, for example, there's 261 patients whose diabetes is not coded, which means they're kind of invisible to be in these reports. So this is quite a natty little thing from PennCS. It's in data cleansing in your report, and it's called indicated diabetes but not diagnosed. So it can read the anti-diabetic medications, the HbA1c result, and the fasting blood glucose and it will determine whether a patient is likely, possible, or for review of diabetes that's not coded. So that's a nice way of double clicking on the re-identified patient name and getting straight into best practice or MD and adjusting that diagnosis from the drop down list for diagnosis. So it's very, very quick, very easy to utilize, very user friendly, a nice way of doing quality improvement. So this is about the diabetes register. I did come across some nurses over the last couple of weeks that didn't know that the diabetes register existed. And so we thought we'd just bring this up because while it was a requirement of the diabetes SIP to have a diabetes register, which is why the software companies included it, it still exists even though the SIP doesn't. And so from Medical Director, it's found from the home page under the search. Oh, sorry, just back a little. Thanks. From the search page and the diabetes register, and then from best practice from the home page under the clinical tab, and then to the diabetes register. And just to make sure your permissions are set in your practice that would allow you access to practice databases. Thanks. So once you're in the Medical Director diabetes register, there are some quite good things that you can do there. You can just display overdue patients, which would be the red patients, they're listed. You can get a summary of the patient's diabetes cycle of care. You can open the patient. You could add a recall to that patient. But also you can look at your practice statistics as well across the whole cohort, and you can print that list to work from. With best practice, again, you can show the overdue only. You can open the patient from here. Oh, oops. Thanks. You could send a mail merge, print the list, and export to save it. But something really clever in this one is you can search by the usual doctor so that each doctor would get their own list of patients. So in Medical Director with the diabetes cycle of care, that's found from in the patient record, the clinical tab, and then the diabetes record. There are a couple of options there. You can start the diabetes assessment, which is 7 pages, 7 screens in length. And the last page is actually the medication review. But also you can add values. And so when you add values, you get the diabetes record screen, and you can add pathology and observations. So that's quite a handy system. With best practice, the diabetes cycle of care record is found in the tree on the left-hand side under the enhanced primary care, and also the medication review is found there as well. So similarly, there's a couple of options there. You can start that cycle of care, or you could add new values of pathology and observations, but really they should auto-populate from pathology and your observations field. So those are 2 nice ways of ensuring your diabetes cycles of care are complete. And these cycles of care, these are what populate the diabetes register. Thanks, Maureen.
So thanks, Deb. That's really concise and helpful of all of the different tools to help you with quality improvement and looking at different ways to look at data through the data extraction tool and diabetes register in your clinical system. The Diabetes Alliance would love to work with you and look at specific diabetes information through the data program that we provide. If you or your practice are interested, we do have an expression of interest form on the PHN website through the drop down through Diabetes Alliance under programs. The primary care improvement officer who supports your practice can help you. There's also a little YouTube video that sits on this site that has got a summary from Dr. Shamacharya, who's our clinical lead, that if you wish to show your team, please follow that, and that may support getting across the line or explaining further what we do in the program. Alternatively, I'm really happy if you want to contact myself or Deb and we can chat to you further.
Okay. I'm just having a look at the questions now. So not so much questions that have come through, but if anyone has them, please place them in the box now. But a couple of comments. One from Kate, who says that we have the same issue in our practice with summaries regarding foot checks, that it shows the numbers to be very low. In reality, we do loads of foot checks. Are they only recorded if it's put in the DCC table in BP? That's the first part, and then I'll get to the next part, then I'll let you answer that bit.
So it does need to be recorded in the cycle of care. So under the mapping, when we send the slides out to you, it will show that that has to be recorded in the cycle of care. So in best practice under the enhanced primary care field, or in medical director on the diabetes record. So it just needs to have a result and a date to be held. And so what we're suggesting is that if it's correspondence that's coming in by post, that it's coded on arrival, you know, by the doctor or the nurse. But if you're doing it in your practice yourself with a monofilament, etc., then you should be able to put the date and the result in as well.
Great. Okay. And you might have already covered this, but is there any other way to capture this data without accessing the DCC?
Look, the DCC, the diabetes cycle of care, that's what populates the register. And so it does need to be, you do need to utilize those fields in your practice software if you want to have a diabetes register that is up to date and current. And likewise, the CAT4 system, it reads coded entries. And so it's helpful if all the information is in the cycle of care. Your CAT4 will be able to read those entries, and then your reports will just look more accurate for the work that you're doing. It will reflect the data as you're doing it. So yes, it is important, I think is my answer.
Okay, and just another comment. Oh, there's another one just come in as I'm speaking. Non-coded can also include those on certain medications, but are only pre-diabetic. Is that true? Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So yes, I understand what you're saying. So in the indicated diabetes but not coded, there's 3 categories of that. So there's likely, possible, or for review. So in the slides, when you get them, you'll find that for review is for a patient who's prescribed metformin. The possible category is an HbA1c above 6 and less than 6.5, or prescribed an anti-diabetic med excluding metformin. And the likely is an HbA1c above 6.5, or an HbA1c of anything recorded and prescribed an anti-diabetic medication, or a fasting blood group above 7. So it's really important to understand how CAT4 thinks of likely, possible, and for review, particularly about metformin.
Great. Okay. Is there a way to populate observations and pathology results from DACC into a Gpmp automatically?
I would have thought that the Gpmp template auto-populates in your system from the observations field, and the observations field is what populates the cycle of care. So it should all line up. Certainly, you know, things that are free typed in progress notes will not be read and not be coded, and obviously won't auto-populate.
Okay, and just a final comment, wish we could also freehand type into the diabetic CC so we could add extra information like a flow sheet. So that's a good comment from Christine. Yeah.
Lobby your clinical systems provider. That's the best way to get things done.
Exactly. Good point. Yeah, and someone else has just written that would depend on what Gpmp template that you're using and the software system. So yeah, good one to talk to your software about that. All right. Well, thank you. That was a great session, great recovery. Technical issue, little tiny technical issue. Happens to the best of us, and that's okay. And like I said before, those copies of those slides will be available in the Education Library, and I'll also send them out to all attendees that have attended today as well as a backup. So well done, ladies. Great session. Thank you so much, and thank you for all being here with us this afternoon. And we'll see you at the next Mastermind. See you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Phil.
Thanks, Mara.
Bye.
Bye.